Namaste, let's go live on another bicycle live stream on Sunday 18th of July at 7:27 a.m. I've ridden 28 kilometres, it's currently 13.1 degrees, rather cool 13.1. And this morning's topic is shelter. Actually, I must mention it's a beautiful winter's morning out here, it's really peaceful. Yesterday's breeze has dropped off, it's calm, it's clear. So it really is fantastic. So let's have a spiritual Sunday discussion. Let's talk about shelter. So, you ever noticed how cats love to get a cardboard box and get in the cardboard box and make it their little home? And how dogs like to curl up in their little, like their dog bed or something similar and make it like their safe place. Have you noticed how kids like to build forts and fortresses and have little doll homes and this sort of thing? Why is that a common theme, and what is it pointing to? Well, one of the characteristics of what we all search for, which is love, one of the characteristics of love is a sense of security, safety, trust. All of these things are encapsulated in the term shelter. We're all looking for like a safe place, a safe zone that we can just sort of like take that we can relax into and feel that we are completely safe. And for a lot of us, we get a bit of that feeling when we come home and after a hard day's work, and we can close the door and just put our feet up and relax and go, I'm home now, I feel safe. Take a deep breath out, and we feel like we have some shelter. And this need of shelter is something that propels us into looking for it in many different ways. And unfortunately, and often quite sadly, we take shelter almost all the time in the temporary, and this creates its own set of complications because we're taking shelter in something that we cannot actually rely on, something that comes and goes. And our need for shelter is deeper than that. It is an eternal need. And if we take shelter in the temporary, we are setting ourselves up for failure, for disappointment. So when we look around at the way people live their lives, you'll see we take shelter in so many different things that are ultimately leading us to disappointment. There are people that become obsessed with different hobbies, different projects. They might take shelter in their work. It gives them something that they can believe in and rely on, and something to put their mind towards every day. We might be taking shelter in a hobby that we have at home. Maybe we like some sort of art or crafty type thing we do at home. Maybe we're mechanically minded and we like working on things in the garage. Maybe we like buying houses and doing them up. All of these things we are taking shelter in, and all of these things are temporary. A lot of people take shelter in the companionship of their pets, of their companion animals. And again, it's temporary. We know that it's going to end, and we are going to be exceptionally disappointed when our beautiful companion animal is no longer there with us, and we have been pouring all our heart's desire, our need for shelter into our companion animal. And let me just say at this point that I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with taking care of animals, rescuing animals, having a loving, caring relationship with them, and the same with people, rescuing people. That's an in-joke. I tend to be a people rescuer. Having a loving, caring relationship. That is a necessary component of life, but it should not be where we set our shelter. If we put our shelter in that, then unfortunately we are just delaying the inevitable. We are not facing the reality that we are just temporarily finding just like a temporary peace. We can relax for a little while and breathe out. But why is this need for shelter, this need for safety, security from the unpredictability of life, from the storms of life, why is it so important for us? And why is it so prevalent, not just for us, but for all living beings? When we look at the way that animals live their lives, you'll see the same need coming through as well. Well, when we come back to the understanding that our deepest need is love, and that we are searching for it through happiness, we understand that we take shelter in our mind a lot of the time, rather than making it a heartfelt shelter. So we actually take shelter in our thoughts. And a good example of this is that we become quite addicted to certain beliefs, certain outlooks on life, certain conspiracy theories. We take shelter in them and we fight to protect them. We have to believe in them for us to find some solace, some temporary safety and security in that belief system, in those thoughts. But our thoughts are temporary and constantly changing, and this is a very unreliable area to look for shelter, because we're looking for shelter. It's very unreliable. So going back to talking about looking for shelter, we're looking for shelter because we are fish out of water. We are in an environment that is not our natural home. We are spiritual beings in a material world, in an existence that is temporary, that is always changing, that if we put our hopes and wishes into this temporary existence, we will be met with disappointment. It is inevitable. You know, when you're in a relationship and you put your shelter in that other person, and so that other person becomes your shelter, and you trust them, and you feel secure with them. And then, unfortunately, I might just add that they're possibly and quite likely doing the same with you, taking shelter in you as well. But you are both suffering from perfect imperfection, and neither is able to be the perfect shelter for the other. All we can do if we put shelter in a situation like that, all we can expect is a temporary a temporary sort of arrangement or connection or whatever. But what happens is once the honeymoon period is over, which psychologically is usually a maximum of 12 months, it's a book called The Honeymoon Period. I think it's Dr. Bruce Lipton, I think, wrote that one. Once that's over, then we start taking shelter in other things again. And for some of us, that shelter may not be particularly positive, sadly. It may be taking shelter in addictive behaviours, substances, thought patterns, things that are actually destructive to our health. So our need to take shelter, to feel safe and secure when living in an unpredictable world, comes from the fact that, as I say, this is not our home, that we're fish out of water, and that our natural habitat is one of constant love, of safety, of security, of shelter, of being able to not have to be on guard all the time, of not having to feel that you need to protect yourself, not having to work out whether you can trust someone or not. We come from a home where trust, truth, love, peace, harmony, forgiveness, compassion, all of these things are naturally occurring and are eternal. And we have this deepest desire to try and find them here in this world and to try and recreate them, to try and connect with people that we think are mirroring that back to us, and to try and hang on to thoughts that we think bring a degree of peace. The wise person who has gone through enough suffering and has gone through the lesson repeatedly, the wise soul comes to the understanding that what they're searching for is not found in these temporary material connections and thoughts that they are attaching themselves to. The wise person in a state of surrender comes to a realization that the solution to the problem of finding a reliable source of shelter can only be found in a spiritual connection. This is an inevitable conclusion that no matter how many other alternatives we try, is the end result of that lesson. And it cannot be any other answer. So it will always come to the understanding that what we're searching for can only be fulfilled with a spiritual connection. And everything else up to that point is a lesson learning, a lesson in understanding and pointing us towards that direction, helping us to get closer to that understanding. And if we keep deliberately, consciously choosing to ignore the information we're being given, then we will keep being reminded, and sometimes in a very painful way, emotionally or physically, we will be reminded that we are still not letting go of our mind's need to think it's in control and taking shelter in our spiritual connection with the universe. I highly recommend transcendental sound, transcendental meditation. It calms your mind and brings a sense of peace and shelter. And it helps your heart reconnect to the great heart, the biggest heart there is, the biggest heart that we come from. So transcendental meditation is something, mantra meditation it's known as well, is something I've been doing for 28 years now. And it is the one thing that I can always return to when my thoughts have gone off in search of a shelter somewhere where it is not to be found. So I hope this gives you food for thought. Our spiritual need for nourishment cannot be fulfilled with material things, it has to be spiritually nourished, and that is where we will find our shelter and our peace. So have a great day on this magnificent Sunday morning. Remember to live vegan and save lives, and I'll speak with you soon. Ahimsa.